Here are a few important rules that we ask you to follow throughout your experience. Please maintain a distance of 6 feet or more from any person who is not in your group, including all uniformed staff. We encourage guests to wash and sanitize their hands frequently. Hand washing stations and hand sanitizing units are available at all public locations. Please remember, a face covering is required throughout your experience, including Alcatraz landing, on board the vessel, and while on Alcatraz Island. Restrooms are provided on the vessel, on Alcatraz Island dock, and adjacent to the lighthouse. Vessels depart Alcatraz Island frequently throughout the day, and you may depart the island on any vessel you wish. Departure times are posted throughout the island. Alcatraz Cruises vessels are required to depart on time. We regret we cannot open the boarding gate once it is closed. Some areas of the island are unsafe and closed to the public. Do not enter closed areas. You will encounter steep walkways, uneven surfaces, and tripping hazards on Alcatraz. Please watch your step and be careful as you move about the island and be aware of service vehicles. All plants, animals, and historic structures on Alcatraz Island are protected by law. Do not collect or take anything off the island. Feeding and disturbing the birds, animals, and sea life on and around the Alcatraz Island is strictly prohibited. Smoking is allowed in one designated area of the Alcatraz dock. Bottled water is welcome anywhere on the island. Food is not allowed anywhere on Alcatraz. Alcohol is not permitted on the island. For your safety, anyone under the influence of alcohol or drugs will not be permitted on vessels or the island.
I want to welcome you. My name is Ranger Al. Good afternoon, everyone. Great having you here. Let me just tell you a few quick things. 2 bathrooms on the island that work. That's the most asked question on Alcatraz. Where are the bathrooms? Behind you. That's the big one. The little one up top by the prison building, way up there. Eat, smoke, drink down here at the dock. Once you leave the dock, this is it, water. And if you do smoke, further restricted all the way over to your left in the little corner with the birds flying over, waiting for people to smoke. The practice. We do target practice over there. Now, it's a 136-foot climb to the top. That's about a 10-story building up the paths. If you feel you can't make it, you have a physical mobility issue, after the talk, please go over to your left on the other side. You'll see a tram stop, and that tram will take you up to the top in case you need it. Face coverings. Outdoors, you're on your own. If you so choose to wear a face covering outdoors, that's up to you. If you don't, that's also up to you. However, indoors, they are required, and you must look like that. So indoors can be in a few places. Inside this building, right up the way, you'll see steps and a ramp. The bottom part of the building is an 1850 fort. This was the first Western military fort. Top is 1905, the old barracks for the guards and their families. So you can go in there and walk out the back and head up top. Masks inside. Out, straight out, 1934 Diamond T fire truck, the original fire truck in the island. You may want to check that out. On the way down, the new industry building will be open, telling you the whole story about the native occupation. Your audio tours is available 2 ways. One, via the QR code. Download it. Do not start it until you're inside the cell house.
Sa gilid. How it feels. Parang hindi natin kasabay mo ngayon.
Hindi nga. Guided tour yan.
I know. Kala ko wala nang walking.
Ano?
Kala ko. Nauna siya. Parang lumang office. Audio room. Yeah. Audio room. Yeah. It doesn't look like a house.
Mga susi, oh.
Oh yeah, so we have extra devices for you guys. If you have the map ready, you're gonna keep following the line, go right, hit the A block. It kind of stresses it. No, we have a bunch of staff members that'll let you know. Let's just go to the send mo na lang sa akin yun.
Sa phone pakikinggan, nakaganon sila lahat eh.
Pakinggan mo nga daw. Picture ka sa loob. Yes.
Pero ito wala tong mga ano eh. Walang mga toilet. Ito may toilet na. Kuha tayo ng audio. Yeah.
I think Mary's ready. Table number 2, please.
Thank you.
First thing you want to learn when you hit Alcatraz is keep your mouth shut. I'll be back.
Thank you for joining us on our tour of the Alcatraz Cell House. You should now be standing under the sign that says Tour Begins Here. On your right, look for a photo panel entitled Tour Narrators. Walk over to it.
Walk, do not run when moving from one place to another.
I'm Pat Mahoney, former Alcatraz correctional officer, and I'll be your guide. I served 7 years on the Rock. These first photos introduce some of my fellow officers.
I am Philip Bergen, Captain of the Guards, United States Penitentiary, Alcatraz, California.
Well, my name is George DeVincenzi. I used to play checkers with Robert Stroud. I don't think I ever beat him.
My name is Ronald Battles. I asked whether they hired blacks out there. You know how it was in the 50s.
Continue to the left to the next photo panel. These are some of the prisoners whose voices you'll hear.
Yeah, my name is Leon Whitey Thompson. My number was 1465. I was a man that had total hatred in them days. I hated anything that walked or crawled on this earth. I was a man who was dead inside. You couldn't hurt me no more, see?
I'm John Banner. My Alcatraz number was 1133. I'm a thief, you know. I ended up about number 17 or something like that on the most wanted.
You were a number, you weren't a name. I wasn't Jim Quill, and hell, I was number 586. Everybody wants to be an individual. They want to be a human. And you weren't at the Rock.
My name is Darwin Kuhn, number 1422. Figured I'm never going to get out. Yeah, I'm going to sit right here until I die.
Now, continue to your left. Up ahead, you'll see an open gate on your right. This was called the cutoff. Walk through the cutoff. The Alcatraz Cell House opened as a federal prison in 1934. Within these walls lived the country's toughest, most dangerous, and most famous prisoners. As soon as you exit the cutoff, immediately turn right onto the next corridor. It's called Broadway. Walk slowly along the line of cells on the right side. Each cell has a number above the cell door. On your right, find cell number 113. Stop and look inside. Broadway was the first stop for arriving prisoners.
We went right down Broadway, in our birthday suits. And all the guys, howling and
Well, here's a typical Alcatraz cell. Every one of them in the cell house exactly like.
I had a metal tabletop and a little chair there, and that was about it. So it was pretty barren.
5 feet wide, 9 feet long, 7 feet high. That's what I call a little box.
No decorations allowed, anything. Couldn't paste anything on the wall.
Continue to the next cell. Waiting on the bed for each new prisoner was a copy of the official rules and regulations.
This is the rules of the cell house. Your cell is subject to search at any time.
Your towel had to be folded up and put on your shelf. Your toothbrush, and they used to give us tooth powder in little green containers.
Now, continue ahead to the next cell.
I guess like a cockroach feels in a matchbox.
You may smoke in your cell, in the library.
We were issued a pack of wings on a Monday, Wednesday, and a Friday. Every inmate, whether he smoked or not.
Continue to the next cell.
Sweep your cell and place the trash in the trash
I
bin.
knew every mark, everything in that cell. And pretty soon that cell became like a part of me, or I became a part of the cell.
Look ahead to the far end of Broadway. You should see a clock on the wall. Walk towards it.
Alcatraz was always classed as the end of the line, the point of no return. It was like going into the ground. When you're buried, you're gone forever.
Beneath it is the area prisoners call Times Square. When you get to Times Square, turn left. Look over towards the right and find the large photo of the prison recreation yard. Walk over to it.
This is the rules of the cell house. Your cell is subject to search at any time.
Prisoners had a decision to make, whether to obey the rules or not, to do good time or bad time. That decision affected their lives dramatically.
An inmate is given housing, good food, medical attention, and all the necessities of life.
Everything else was a privilege. Time to exercise outside, getting books and mail, all had to be earned. One of their favorite privileges was the recreation yard.
The most pleasant place, I believe, on Alcatraz, and the most appreciated. The handball court, the horseshoe court.
Prisoners also played bridge out in the yard. They used dominoes instead of cards.
They came out with a system called Auto Bridge. You played it all by yourself. Guys got so wound up in this bridge thing that they ate and slept it. They'd go out there and it would be so cold that you didn't think you could stay out there. Yet they'd stay out there for 3 hours and play bridge. And if you're occupied with bridge and you're studying bridge, you're not thinking about going over the wall.
Prisoners who chose not to behave ended up in a harsher place, isolation. You should be facing the photo panel. Look to your left. Directly ahead is an open steel door marked D block. Go through this door. D block was the prison within Alcatraz, the treatment unit.
This place is going to operate on the basis that you do what you're told, and you're going to get a fair break. If you don't behave yourself, we're going to come down on you like a ton of bricks.
Move a few steps into the room and find a place to stand. Look up at the 3 tiers of cells. Unruly or violent prisoners were sent here. They stayed in their cells 24 hours a day, Typically, they were only allowed out once a week for a shower and exercise.
Now in this cell block, we have 42 of the least popular cells in Alcatraz. Although by far they are the best, the roomiest, and the nicest state-of-the-art cells that were available in this prison.
It was cold, it was damp. The wind used to just blow through there. You could hear it. At night you could hear it whistling through the windows.
One of the more infamous prisoners to live here in D Block was convicted killer Robert Stroud, the so-called Birdman.
And almost immediately upon his arrival at Alcatraz, he was relegated to the treatment unit. And he didn't bring his birds along with him, which made him very unhappy, but he brought all his bad habits with him, which made us unhappy. And there he remained for several years, being obnoxious and noisy and agitating and busily writing. Fluent in 3 languages, a mathematical expert, brilliant man.
He was a psychopath.
Suicidal, homicidal maniac.
Now, turn to face the windows. Walk over to the photo panel on the wall. You'll see a photo of Robert Stroud. Alongside Stroud, you'll see some other well-known prisoners. Alcatraz was built for men like these.
Alvin Karpis, you gotta watch out for him. Former public enemy #1.
Creepy Karpis. When you seen Creepy, you wouldn't have to be told he was creepy because he walked on his toes.
He had Kelly.
Machine Gun Kelly.
Nice fella, never give you any troubles at all. Very accommodating, polite.
Mickey Cohen, Frankie Garbo.
And Capone.
Ain't a fool with Capone, see? He was a street fighter. He's a big man. He was in good shape. The only thing, his brain was gone. He had syphilis. Well, eventually it drove him crazy.
Now, turn back to the cells. Walk over to the cells on the far right with solid green doors. This was solitary confinement, the whole, cells 9 through 14.
When the cell was occupied, the regulations required that the light be on.
Well, we kept the lights off when they were in there. They were in the dark.
You may enter one of the cells if you wish.
Well, when I'd go in the hole, what I used to do was I'd tear a button off my coveralls. I'd flip it up in the air. Then I'd turn around in circles. Then I'd get down on my hands and knees and I'd hunt for that button. And when I found the button, I'd stand up, I'd do it again.
Now, open your eyes. Step out of the hole. Walk through the nearest doorway marked library. Continue into the large open area. This was the prison library.
You put your request on a library card. If the book was available, they'd bring it and put it in the bars for you.
Prisoners with reading privileges could subscribe to approved magazines.
And if it had some story about some convict out of Nebraska or something, that was cut out. Never mind that you might have been reading a serial and it was on the back of one of them pages.
Prisoners who behaved could also take correspondence courses.
Took a course from the University of Pennsylvania on animal husbandry. The gestation period for a pig is 3 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days.
Now, let's continue. Walk out of the library, step back out of the cutoff and onto Seedy Street. Continue walking slowly past the library along the corridor. Although calm was restored for San Franciscans, the Battle of Alcatraz was a stark reminder of the danger of having a maximum security prison on their doorstep. Escape attempts got the attention, but in Alcatraz's 30 years history, most days were uneventful and repetitive. Stop at the first furnished cell. Most accepted that this cell block, however grim, was home for now. Some considered this sunny area the most desirable part of the prison to live.
It was like coming back and greeting an old friend, really.
Take a look into the cells.
I used to do a lot of oil paintings on Alcatraz. If I was painting a scene of the Swiss Alps or something like that, hey, I'm right up there skiing as I'm painting, and I used to escape that way.
My grandmother taught me how to crochet when I was a kid. So I taught a lot of guys how to crochet. Big tough guys sitting in there with a needle and crocheting.
Move on to the next cell. In the 1950s, radios were installed at Alcatraz. You might have noticed what looks like a light switch box with two holes. Prisoners plugged their earphones in there to listen to the radio.
We had 2 stations we could plug into. They let us listen to such programs as Boston Blackie,
Pelican, Have Gunwood Travel.
Continue to the end of Seedy Street. When you get there, turn left. Look for 4 small windows in the wall on the right. They're marked Visitation. The prisoners called this Pekin Place.
When they'd written me that letter and said, you know, you're dead, don't ever come back, we've told your sister you're dead, the whole bit. You know, I'd been there at the Rock 7.5 years. The guard came up and racked my door open and said, Quillen? And I said, yeah. Or said 586, and I said, yeah. You got a visitor? And I told him, I said, you're full of crap. He said, you got a damn visitor, go down to the visiting office.
Approach the visitors' windows.
I thought, hell, I'll see some good-looking chick at least, if nothing else, you know.
We're now entering officers' country. Walk along the left side of the corridor. We're passing the prison control room on your right, but keep walking. We'll stop here again later. Turn left into the first doorway up ahead. Officers reported for duty in this room. This is where the business of running the prison took place. They said, okay, fall in. Step up to the mannequin in the glass case. This is a typical Alcatraz officer's uniform.
Uniform was prison gray with a hat.
I wore a hat all the time.
Regular double-breasted uniform.
And they used to call you red ties because everybody in the place had this red tie on.
Even supplied your shoes and your socks. Didn't look like a policeman. You didn't look like a social worker.
The only thing that you had when you went in the cell house was a whistle.
I carried a sap. We weren't supposed to, but many of us did.
Unlike the prisoners, officers could leave the prison. Many officers lived right here on the island. Now continue through the nearest open doorway. Keep walking through the next small room. The larger room up ahead is the warden's office.
I never did see what it looked like inside the warden's office. The only time I ever found out what it would look like is when I come back as a tourist.
Alcatraz had 4 wardens over its 29-year span. Walk over to their photos. The prison opened in 1934 under the strict discipline of Warden James Johnston.
They call him Saltwater Johnson, see? Things start to change when the new warden come in. They open up a little more.
Move to the next photo.
Yeah, Warden, they'd swoop. Nobody wanted to tangle with Swoop. The convicts called him the devil.
Next was Warden Paul Madigan.
And his nickname was Promising Paul. He'd promise you everything and never give you nothing.
The last warden was Olin Blackwell. He was in charge when the prison closed.
Oh, Mr. Blackwell. Mr. Blackwell was a character. He was a Texan and a really nice guy.
Now continue through the next doorway and walk outside. Immediately turn right. We're only going to be outside for a short time. Keep moving along the walkway to the open area up ahead. When you get there, find a place to stand where you can see San Francisco.
You couldn't beat Alcatraz for the beautiful view there.
So there was never a day you didn't see what the hell you were losing and what you were missing, you know? It was all there for you to see. There's life. There's everything I want in my life, and it's there. It's a mile or a mile and a half away, and yet I can't get to it.
Look at the city directly across from us.
San Francisco is only 1.25 miles from Alcatraz. And it's a combination of tides and temperature that makes that swim so treacherous.
I recall getting in that water, and it was like a shock. Unexpected to be that cold. If you can do it, it's up to you. But you got to pay the price.
Bill, there's a guy up here I can't get up. Well, it's the sergeant says, I'll get him up.
Look across the aisle for cell number 138.
I'll wake him up.
Walk over to it and look inside.
Hey!
And he was laying in there, so I reached in through the bars and I hit the pillow. And Lord knows what happened. The head fell off on the floor. The guy said that I shot back about 6. Here's his face, here's his head, hair on his head and everything. One of the other officers there said, here's another one, Bill, right here. There's one up here, Bill. And I said, don't touch him. Don't touch it with a horror movie. And I was right in the middle of it.
You should be facing the cells. Continue to your left to cells number 150 and 152. Prisoners Frank Lee Morris and 2 brothers, John and Clarence Anglin, had escaped the night before. They made dummy heads to fool the officers. Morris was the brains. The Anglin brothers, they were just swamp rats out of Florida. According to the reports, the men enlarged the vent openings in the back of their cells with stolen spoons.
I'll give you a ton of spoons, and I want to see how long it'll take you to go through one of them walls there. Them walls may be old, but let me tell you, you're not going through them cells with them spoons.
They didn't make those holes with spoon handles. They had the necessary tools, hammers and chisels and drills.
No one thought it was possible to get through concrete using spoons, but in fact they were heavy gauge steel, and you break off the bowl and now you've got a drill. And in fact 13 spoon handles and a ladle handle were actually found hidden in 2 cans of cement paint after the escape was over.
Face the utility corridor. To your left is Broadway. Continue around the corner and back onto Broadway. Stay to your left and walk slowly down the corridor. Imagine it is nighttime and the cell house is dark.
Lights went out around 9:30 at night, and that was it.
It was dead quiet. Quiet like a mausoleum.
It was kind of scary walking around those dark tiers, and some would sleep with their eyes open, some grind their teeth, some talk in their sleep.
You lay awake a long time.
I could sit out there in 2 Tower at nighttime and see the full moon come up.
Continue slowly down Broadway past the cutoff toward Times Square.
In the housing of inmates at Alcatraz, it was deemed necessary to keep the blacks separate from the whites.
At that time, Alcatraz mirrored American society. This part of Broadway was a segregated section for black prisoners. You should now be at the end of the corridor. This is the area known as Times Square. Directly ahead of you is the dining hall. Step through the doorway and move toward the bars at the back of the dining hall. 3 times a day, all the men in general population gathered here for 20-minute meals. Imagine 200 plus men, each armed with a knife, fork, and spoon. This was potentially the most dangerous room in the cell house.
And if you notice up on the ceiling there, you see these canisters up there dotted around. That's tear gas. And we nicknamed the dining room the gas chamber. It so happened during the history of Alcatraz, they never did trip the button. If they did trip it, they would have made a fatal mistake because them 2 guards in there and the lieutenant would never have gotten out of there alive.
Now walk to the barred area at the far end of the dining room. Behind it is the kitchen area. Notice the knife rack on the left. The shape of each knife was outlined on the rack. This way, officers could tell immediately if one was missing. Even so, some knives disappeared.
I think about 3-4 men got killed with kitchenware.
And I heard that old familiar pop slap, you know, and Chili had drove it into Sosa's back. It was just like an ice pick. He stuck it right in the back, and that was the pop slap I heard.
Feel free to sit on one of the benches.
Alcatraz, I don't think you ever heard anybody say anything disparaging about the meals.
It was a strict requirement of the Bureau of Prisons that the food not only be palatable and healthy, but attractively served.
When they first started making spaghetti and putting it on the line, it was pretty good. And it kept going down and down and down.
Noodles and plum juice.
So somebody said, damn it, the next time they put that spaghetti out on the line, we're going to turn the tables over. The following week, there was a damn spaghetti.
Pretty soon all the tables are coming like domino. Pa, 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 pa.
And the lives of those officers in that dining room were in jeopardy. And so old Burden just took it in hand and took that Thompson and knocked out 3 panes of glass. Buck, waited, buck, waited, buck, knocked out the 3rd. Got everybody's attention. I jammed that actuating lever back and she went click and they all heard it and they knew what it meant.
Early in 1963, Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy ordered Alcatraz closed. Look back toward the dining hall entrance. Walk over to the large photo of prisoners walking down Broadway. They were the last prisoners to leave the Rock on March 21st, 1963.
The last day we were there, we ate breakfast in the dining room, showered, and put on clean uniforms and shackles and handcuffs, down to the boat.
I saw the last inmate leave. The last inmate leave.
And I went from hell to heaven. And when I stop and think what I was doing over there, locked up in those gun galleries and towers and wrestling inmates, and yes, heaven and hell.
And I remember when they released me. I've been locked up 15 years, and during all this time, I never had no visits, no letters, no nothing. And I'm watching the cars whizzing by, and the people walking. Everything was moving too fast, and I didn't know how to move with it. And then I remember how envious I was of these people, because they all had a destination. They were all going someplace, and I didn't know where I was going. And I was scared to death.